Please welcome IDEO Managing Director, Emerging Technology, Savannah Kunovsky, and Edge Impulse's Director of Applied Research and Edge AI, Daniel Situnayake.
It didn't introduce.
Hey, everybody. It's cool to be back at Imagine. An amazing last talk. That data equity piece is so important. I'm Dan. Some of you might know me. I lead the research team at Edge Impulse, and I've been around since the start of the company. I've been doing Edge AI stuff for quite a while, starting at Google, working on TensorFlow Lite, joined Edge Impulse right at the start, written a couple of books along the way. But I'm really excited to be able to invite my friend here on stage with me to Imagine. So Savannah, you've done some amazing stuff. You've set up programming schools across Africa. You've worked on AI relationship therapists. And right now you're managing director at the Emerging Tech Lab at IDEO. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what that means and what you guys do on your team.
Yeah, happy to. Maybe before I talk about myself, to show, not tell what we'll be exploring, I can do a little bit of an exercise with you all. It's going to be kind of weird. Is that OK? It's OK? Enthusiastic, yes? OK.
I'm going to do it, too. I have no idea what we're about to do.
Beautiful. So. I'm going to do a magic trick. Just kidding. Close your eyes. You are about to go to the moon. You look down at your hands. There's space gloves. You look around. There's all sorts of metal and knobs and dials that are ready to take you up there. On the count of 3, you're going to blast off. And you're going to go up through the atmosphere, around the moon, and then come back down. And you'll have about 30 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1, blast off. Up through the atmosphere, around the moon. If you haven't started to, start to make your way back down to the ground. And open your eyes when you get back to this room. OK, so we did this exercise because so much of the time when we do that type of things with kids, they shoot off to the moon before I say go. They go all the way to Mars. They take their friends with them. And they just completely don't follow the rules. But when we do this with adults, they follow the rules for the most part. You go up, you're in your spacesuit, and you go around the moon. And I think that this is illustrative of, the title of this conference is Imagine, right? It's illustrative of the need for more creativity and the need for more different types of dimensionality of the creativity that we're bringing to the work that we're doing. Because we have all of this training and all of this knowledge, which is great for creating all of the products and services and companies that we all build, sometimes that makes us lose some of the edge of creativity that we have when we're younger or just a little bit more open-minded. So really what the purpose of design is to help us imagine new possibilities, help us to see new futures and new potentials for the things that we're designing, the organizations we're creating, the experiences that we're creating. And that's the work that I do at IDEO across a huge spectrum of different forms of technology.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. That's really cool. I definitely feel a bit more spacey than before.
Oops.
So I wanted Imagine to have a session where we kind of explore the implications of this technology we all work with on our future. So kind of going beyond what we can do today and what we've been doing in the past. I think some of the stuff we're working on can have a pretty profound implication on the way that people live, the way that people work. And it's not something we spend enough time talking about, I think. So that was my goal here. So Savannah, I think you've said in a past talk recently that we live in the future already. And I'd love to touch on that. I happen to agree with that, but what makes you say that?
Yeah. I think that we live in the future and we just kind of haven't recognized it. It doesn't look exactly like the Jetsons space age future, but we have cars that drive themselves. We have people getting brain chips like implanted into their brains. Controlling Mario Kart and playing video games through a chip implanted in your brain is an amazing feat of technology. We have self-driving cars. Even phones, you've had a tiny computer in your pocket for almost 2 decades that has more compute than the first space missions. Like, it's a really amazing and remarkable thing how much technology we have and how prolific it is. And really, when we take a step back and we kind of look at all of that stuff, it is really futuristic technology. And I think that right now, we're in this place where, because we have all of this pouring in of investment into various forms of AI and other forms of technology, we get to make a choice about the type of future that we want to build and the type of future that we want to live in. And I think a lot of that, yes, comes from the R&D and kind of how we build things, but also really from how all of these products and services get designed and delivered to people.
And so in the last few years, there's obviously been this explosion in AI. And when we talk about AI, it's mostly been chatbots, really, outside of this kind of world. And I think the idea of embodied AI and physical AI is just starting to come back into the conversation in a bigger way. Why do you think that has been neglected until recently, and why are we only now hearing about these big advances in edge AI?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time when we have new technologies that start to become more popular, it's because there have been technological breakthroughs, either in the technology itself or in the manufacturing of the technology on one side, and then also because there just starts to be more demand for better experiences. And I think that what's happening is we've kind of reached some of the thresholds and limitations of what the last chapter of technology could offer us. And now that we have all of these new and interesting capabilities that are being unlocked through these technological breakthroughs, it's time to shift those and design those into more actionable things that people are able to use in ways that really will change their lives.
So you agree that we're kind of on the cusp of a whole new set of ways of interacting with computers. Are there some tangible examples of those that you might want to share?
I thought you'd never ask. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years around everyday robotics and new forms of personal devices, and I like to bring this pet. I'm not going to call it a device. This is a pet. It's a robot pet. It's called a Mothman. His name is Cabbage, with a K. Named by one of our good friends at work. But the reason why I bring him is because, again, show not tell what I think that the future of technology might look like. I think the last era of robotics and many of the everyday devices that we use have been very functional feeling and very industrial feeling, which is great for the purposes that those serve. But when we start to think about bringing robots into people's homes or just by things that would kind of live alongside us, they need to have different form factors that actually integrate well into our homes and integrate into our lives, both from aesthetic perspectives and then also from the perspective of what is it that people will trust more. And this thing, if I take the fur off, it just looks like a hunk of plastic and metal and electronics. But when you cover it in fur, okay, let's take off your human suit. Yeah, but when you cover it in fur, then immediately becomes lovable, which is not a word that people often use to describe robots. And so I think the next era of home robotics and home devices that will be really popular are going to be things that are designed in a way that really resonate with people, whether it's that we have home robots that rather than looking like big, scary machines, they just look like your air purifier and other kind of devices that you already have in your home. And or if it's that we make things that are cuter that people want to take care of as soon as they see or get totally freaked out by, depending on who you are. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's this element there of like we've now got the technology to do this type of thing without needing a big bulky device that's made of heavy metal and needs to plug into the mains. All of the stuff that we've been working on the software side with algorithms for perception, on the hardware side for more and more efficient processors means that we can build these new form factors that weren't feasible before.
Totally. Golden age.
So in a recent talk that you gave for InfoQ, which is really, really good if anyone wants to check that out, you asked, what if AI was so useful that it faded into the backgrounds of our lives, was there when we needed it, and wasn't the centerpiece of our existence? And so that sounds like a great vision of the future for me. Are there any other examples of like what that might look like when you think about that? And what kind of opportunities are there for the Edge AI community to help?
Definitely. I think there's huge opportunity for all of you. And there's been a movement in the design space for quite some time called the calm technology movement. And that's in contrast to the devices that we all see and know today that are built for your attention and built to take your attention. And instead, what if we had devices that kind of faded it more into the backgrounds of our lives? So if you had, there's a beautiful provocation by a designer, I think Max Braun, that is a portrait that you put on your wall, and then it just shows you in very faint, dark lettering the headlines of the day. And so you can have your news that's delivered rather than through flashing headlines and ads and all of these things that are kind of causing us as humans to have an emotional reaction. You can have kind of a more calm experience that's faded into the background. I think there's the Samsung Portrait TV also, which does a really beautiful job of that. Having software that's more, and hardware that's more embedded into the mirror in your bedroom and kind of can give you different feedback about if you're doing makeup or about aesthetic things. What if the doorways in our homes, when you walked through them, they could give you information about your biology and could help you be healthier. So what if the future of technology wasn't this thing where we have these crazy looking robots kind of wandering around our homes, but instead our homes still felt like places of calm and of peace, and they just had really useful technology that was embedded in the places that it makes sense for it to be embedded.
I think there's this growing understanding now that there's something bad about being on our phones, scrolling all the time, literally doing it during this talk. But I think there's this opportunity to kind of break that connection between a computer type thing or a phone and technology. We can have all these capabilities without being glued to a screen. It's almost like a cliche to talk about screens, but it's such a thing that we can't get away from it now. Even this little guy comes with an app.
Yeah.
So you've also discussed the idea of mutualism with regards to technology. So I'd love to touch on that and kind of explore a little bit what that is, and is that something that we are at yet, or is it more of an aspirational idea?
Yeah, I think that it's sort of an aspirational idea, but the basic idea behind mutualism is it's a concept from biology. And in symbiosis, which maybe we remember from middle school biology class, there are different types of relationships that organisms can have between each other. So symbiosis, I think the way that we kind of know it is you have two organisms and they both benefit from the relationship between them. That's actually a subset of symbiosis called mutualism. There's parasitism and other forms of symbiosis as well. But in mutualism, you have two organisms that are able to kind of feed into each other and both benefit from the relationship that they have, I don't think that's necessarily the relationship that we have with our technology right now. And I think that it's going to become a more important concept as technology becomes more advanced and it kind of has its own sets of like needs and desires. And if we want more from it, then we're going to have to give to it in ways that it is going to be able to grow and flourish from as well. And we created this vision of mutualism kind of in reaction to a lot of the sci-fi visions that we see about the future of technology that feels super dystopic. And so, what if we created like self-healing computers that benefited from getting our data, but also we could support them in growing through giving them like new materials to work with. I think that there are some organizations in places that we're seeing this that are more outside of the tech ecosystem so far, but if we can, rather than have this vision that is feeling really like harsh and negative about dystopic robot futures, if we can take inspiration from like sci-fi authors like Becky Chambers, who talks about a future of robots where we both kind of like get to know each other as the species that we are and then figure out how to collaborate and coordinate, that feels much better to me.
Absolutely. So in one of the conversations we had before this session, we were talking about the topic of designing for trust. And I think that seems very fundamental to this whole thing. So like, why is that important and what does it mean and how can people start to think about it?
Yeah. I think just in general, like the TLDR on that is that if we're going to ask people and try to sell people more technology that's going to be smarter and more embedded into their lives, then we have to design technology that people trust. And I think that is a major opportunity for Edge, because if people are able to like own and know where their data is and not have to feel like they are going to be taken advantage of or that it's going to be sent to places that they don't trust, then they'll be less likely to buy our services. We already know that if you label your product that you're selling as AI, then people are less likely to buy it. And it's because of all of this kind of nervousness that people have about how that might work and how that might affect them and what it is. And people that are deeper into the tech ecosystem are kind of like, great, amazing new technology. Of course, I want to like put this everywhere and do everything that I want with it. But that's not the reality of how people receive these technologies that we're creating. And so designing products and services that people really trust and they feel like they want to have around them, they want to have in their homes is incredibly important.
Oh, yeah, that's so powerful. I think that's a really good note to end our session on. So I believe we have lunch next. But I'd like to thank Savannah so much for coming on today and sharing some of her thoughts.
Thanks for having me.